working at a elementary school around my college time. I dual enrolled at Gulf Coast in high school and got real burnt out. Basically, what happened is got a lesson real quick on how important it is to pay attention in school. So when I was in high school, I played at Panama Christian and I played baseball, basketball, and football.
Yeah.
I love sports. Wasn't necessarily really good at them, but I loved playing them. And I didn't really care about school, but I was dual enrolling at the time because I was homeschooled. So I was going to college and I wanted to get into the psychology program. And I realized, I got to get my GPA up to get transferred to FSU because at the time, Gulf Coast was only a community college. And I burnt myself out. I busted my butt to get all A's because I needed to get my GPA up. And I was really burnt out when I graduated with my AA. And my dad said, "Have you ever considered joining the Air Force?" Which was completely random because he had never pitched the military to me before, and I had no interest in joining the military. I had recruiters come to me when I worked at Chick-fil-A as a teenager trying to get me to join the armed forces, and I just wasn't interested. I mean, I obviously gave mad props to the people that did it. I just didn't see myself doing it because I loved living where I lived. I love Bay County, and I didn't see myself moving off. I had one opportunity to go off and play ball somewhere, and I decided not to because I wanted to stay in Bay County. And either way, for whatever reason, it was just a perfect storm of things. I decided to join the Air Force. I was active duty for 3 years, realized the active duty life was not right for my wife and I. I got married relatively young, and so we wanted to be around our family, and we loved Bay County, missed it, and we moved back home. And at that time, I had been active duty. I had transferred. We can do what's called the Palace Chase program, where you finish out your contract in the Air National Guard. So I switched from active duty to Air National Guard. During the time to pay the bills, I worked construction for a bit. I did tile work, flooring, things like that. I knew that wasn't what I wanted to do, but I did that while I was going to school. Finished my bachelor's degree, and then I interned at the Navy base, got a job there, worked as a defense contractor doing cybersecurity. After I finished my bachelor's, got my Security Plus, and then I knew I wanted to work on the federal side, and back in 2017, I think it was, I transferred over to the federal government, and I've been doing cybersecurity for the federal government ever since. And along the way, made some connections, networked with people, and started teaching at the college part-time. I'm very passionate about cybersecurity. And so it was an opportunity to kind of be an adjunct professor out there because when I was in school, my favorite teachers were the ones that currently worked in the field because they could tell me what it was like in the real world, what I needed to do to become a professional. And so I kind of wanted to give back to the community in that way. Being an adjunct professor does not pay the bills. It does not pay a lot of money. It pays you enough to make it worth it to show up to teach the kids, so that you can, pay for your gas and stuff. It's not like a lucrative thing. I wanted to do it because I really wanted to give back to those people, and because I know that there's certain things that you need to do to get in that career field, and I want to be able to help those people. And so, that's what I've been doing career-wise since then.
Yeah. No, yeah. I think that's pretty interesting. And so along the way, you decided that you wanted to get into politics.
Mm-hmm.
And getting into that, I had Brian Cloudus on, and we talked about running for office. And so let's kind of go back into that a little bit. I know it was just for the same reason. You want to get back to the community. This is where you grew up, especially Lynn Haven. What you said, third generation Lynn Haven, Lynn Haven Knight. So you wanted to get involved in that realm. What was the most difficult what was the most difficult challenge that you faced during your campaign?
Well, I've grown up. I did theater. I've been on stage my entire life. So I figured I wouldn't have like fears of knocking on people's doors. I've, did theater my entire life. I've played sports in front of people. But man, there's something about breaking through that wall of knocking on someone's door that you've never met before and, talk to them about what you care about and ask for their vote. And, after you do, you did it. That was the hardest thing at first is, getting over your nerves and overcoming something a fear that I didn't know I would have. But then after you do it a few times, that ended up being my favorite part.
Yeah.
Getting to know people. That was the best part.
I respect you for that too, because the main thing is that so on the county level, it's not really done as much as it is on the city municipality side. So working on your campaign, going and knocking on doors with you, I thought that's how that is how a campaign should run. That's how it should work. It should be done by, knocking off the leather off your shoes. And so what we're finding out now, though, at like county and state levels, nah, man, like it's not. It's like I know Tommy did a lot of walking, but it has been very apparent that it really comes down to advertising at those levels. That's the reason why I think city, you really do get down into the root of somebody wanting to serve at the city level, because they have to get out and you're not going to be able to just, I'm just going to raise a bunch of money and I'm going to have a bunch of signs everywhere and I'm going to have commercials going. You actually have to get out and talk to the people, because it's not as spread out.
Right.
It's very, very enclosed. And then also you're having to sway a lot of people. I feel like the city side, on the city side of running for office, you're having to sway a lot of people away from someone that I grew up with that guy, versus, county and statewide stuff. You're not really dealing with that so much because it's so spread out. Everybody grew up with everybody. So, but what's the biggest challenge that you've faced as a commissioner so far?
Probably the fact of, my personality is I like helping people. I like explaining things to people. And I always want what's best with people, and I give people the benefit of the doubt. The hardest thing is, when you're, I guess, in a public position, people don't know you personally. So there's always people out there that just assume that you're out there for self-interest, or assume that you don't care about them. And it's not the case. Like, I'm doing this because I care about the city. I care about you. And I'm doing, whenever I make a decision, I do have you in mind. And so when I try to explain something and someone automatically writes me off as like well, that's just the politician in you talking. Or whatever. I'm not a politician, dude. I'm a citizen just like you are. I did not grow up in a family. No one in my family that I know of, extended or immediate, has ever ran for office. We're not a political family. Politics does not run in my bloods or anything like that. I'm not a politician, just a dude that wanted to help the city. And that's probably been the most difficult thing, is making that adjustment to know that, even though you're trying to help people, some people, maybe you weren't their candidate or whatever. And, that's hard sometimes, but you just got to remember that, they just don't understand. I don't know.
I had Vicky Gaynor on, and one of the things that we kind of hit on was, or at least I hit on it more. She more sat there and listened and just let me talk, because she did, and I get why. But the keyboard warriors that are out there, and in these, there's a couple of different shows now, with all these whack ass conspiracy theories of it's already come around to me through a group that I was talking at during my campaign. It was and I guess the group that I'd went and was speaking to the one evening, they didn't know me and you were friends. So they were like, oh, everybody's sitting up there. Lynn Haven is corrupt, and Sam Peebles, and that was before Jamie had his big breakthrough or whatever. And it was was like, all of them are corrupt. They all sit up there. And I was like, well, first of all, I know Sam. I've known Sam for a very long time. And no, like, that's not it at all. And it's like, oh, you're a good old boy too. And it's like, very far from it. Like, I've never, like, the same was with me, you know. I think you came from pretty much humble beginnings of, you know, mom, dad, the types of jobs that they held. And also you were adopted, which is for a lot of people, that's probably one of the most humble things I think you can do as a person is adopt and bring somebody in that's not your own child and raise them. Like, what was it? I mean, I hate to ask that, but I mean, because we've never had that conversation before.
Yeah.
What it was like growing up, being adopted.
Yeah.
Because that's got to be.
Oh, dude, I'm totally open about it. So growing up, my parents were very open about it. But by parents, I mean my adopted parents. It was a closed adoption from birth. So I've never met my biological parents. Myself, my brother Anthony, and my sister Val, we were all adopted from birth, and all three of us are very open about talking about it because my parents were very open with us about it. From day one, they explained what happened, why they adopted us, what adoption was, and really, it's not been. And I try to encourage people that are looking at adoption. As long as you treat your kids like all the other kids, they won't even know. Like, to us, it was just, okay, we're adopted. Cool. I mean, of course, we make jokes every once in a while, you know, but like if my brother Anthony did something stupid, I'd be like, he's adopted, you know, as a joke. But as far as like affecting me, I mean, I'm thankful, you know, even for my biological mom, like I've had a good life, and that's because she made that decision. You know, she knew that when she was pregnant that she couldn't financially afford to have me at that time. And so she put me up for adoption for a family that was able to take care of me, and they have, and I've had a great life because of it. I have nothing but positive things to say about adoption. And I hope that other people have had the same experience too. It's been a good thing for me. The funny thing is, growing up in the family I did, you know, having two siblings that are adopted and then two that are my adoptive parents' biological children, I mean, we all look different.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of funny, like as I got older, I mean, that was normal to me for all of us to look different. Yeah. And so...
Yeah, you go to somebody's house.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, you go to someone's house.
You guys are aliens.
Yeah. You go to like, we had this one family that we knew that had like 9 kids, and all of them looked alike. And I'm like, this is crazy. I didn't know siblings looked so similar. Yeah. You know? And now it's kind of cool seeing that side of things, having my own kids. But adoption's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. No, but so getting back on that, back to the political side of things, and one of the reasons why I started up the podcast, and so this is kind of a message to the viewers and the listeners. I started up this podcast because of what you said at the beginning, which was nobody really knows you as a person. They know who you are on paper. They know what crazy ass conspiracy theories are out there that are being spread. They hear something or they read something and then they run with it, but nobody knows who you are as a person. So that was the point of the podcast. The point of my show is not to sit there and bring somebody on and interrogate them about dumb shit that I don't care about. This is my show. I'm going to talk about what I want, when I want, how I want, and nobody controls it. And the person that comes on and sits in that seat, they get to control what they want to talk about. Because people need to know who you are. And people don't know who you are if I bring you on. So I did a podcast, and I think you're going to know who it was with. And the tons of foul, disgusting people that all they want to do is hear, see, read, and feel nothing but a bunch of bullshit drama. It's not going to come from here. And I think that everybody has a. I think that the human heart is actually good. We just tend to do bad things sometimes, or we tend not to steer where, you're not going to make everybody happy being in politics, and you definitely know that more than anybody. So with that being said, that was my little message to my viewers and listeners. Having you on and talking about hobbies that you have, having you on talking about being adopted, having you on talking about your education, your kids, your family. That's who you are. Being commissioner, the city of Lynn Haven is something that you do to give back. And it's something that you didn't have to do. And keep in mind to the, peanut gallery that the city elected you. So there's enough people that wanted to see you in that seat. And I think you're doing a good job on the things that matter. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there. That'll be a couple of clips. And then I'm probably going to get some more misspelled hate mail from Karens. So anyway, that was the fight that I wanted to pick real quick. So getting back into the what are we going to see? So we had Vicky on, and she was talking about the new stuff that's to come with the Florida Avenue refurbishment. She had mentioned how much that was going to cost. Is there anything else like in the works that you want to see come out of Lynn Haven as far as entertainment, restaurants, like anything like that? What do you see coming to Lynn Haven within the next 5-10 years that you would like to see?
Well, the Florida Avenue is a great thing. I'd love to see, we already have a golf cart community, and we're working on getting more sidewalks to make the community walkable. I'd love to see Florida Avenue become like a downtown Lynn Haven where people can just walk around. We have a new incentive program out there that I'm really happy about for different areas of Lynn Haven that incentivizes people to build, which is a really good thing. And so I want to see more and more businesses. I want to see, and the goal is to incentivize unique businesses because, people have complained about, we have 1 million chicken places, and I get the complaints, but if we're being real, Florida is a right to build state. We're not, there's rules in place to not tell people what they can and can't do on their own property. That being said, as a city, we can incentivize unique businesses, and we're taking steps in that direction to do it. And when you have unique businesses or unique experiences, you're going to bring in revenue to the city, not only from your own citizens, but from surrounding cities. And I'm hoping to see that. We're headed, as this, you've been in the military, you've been around government. Government is slow, and that's not specific. That's not special to Lynn Haven. Anything government takes more time than anyone would like to see, and that's just the way that the world turns. But we're headed in the right direction there. Another thing that could potentially happen is Marina Island, which would be where the old fuel depot is. I've talked to my main concern with that is I just wanted to make sure that, the industry back there, that they were fine with that. I've sat down and talked to them in the industrial parks, and they're happy about Marina Island. They just want to make sure that they're good neighbors, and they've ensured that they are, and they're happy with it. Marina Island would be a great thing. It'd be a whole community back there, much like kind of like Water Sound or something like that, where we'll have homes, but also businesses that will connect directly to rails to trails where people can ride their bikes in to the area. It'll bring up property values. It'll bring more entertainment for our citizens. It'll bring in more impact fees. I mean, it's a win-win for everyone around. I really hope that happens. I don't have specifics on a timeline at all, but they've come and presented their plan to the city maybe 6 or 7 months ago, I want to say. And so hopefully we'll start seeing some headway there. That's more so on them getting their stuff together, not anything that the city's really doing to speed it up. But once they have their plans together, I hope that it does happen because it's a win-win for everyone involved. That's a good thing that's happening. I mean, there's a lot of things that are happening. We're starting to see the stormwater. That was a really big issue.
So what are some things that we've actually, or what you guys have done for the stormwater to make these initiatives like get better? Because I don't see, how are you guys mitigating that to make it better?
Well, the biggest thing, if I had to, they've started a lot more projects, but the thing that has really helped is they were able to go in and clean out the outfalls that go out to the bay so that the water can move. Those were after the hurricane with all the trees being knocked down. I mean, that's really the biggest issue is we lost all of our trees. So
Nothing's soaking up
yeah,
that
it's
water.
not soaking up the water. It's not slowing down the rainfall. And that resulted in a bunch of brush and stuff going into the outfalls and clogging them up. And there's ditches that needed to be dug, and that takes time. And as you know, when after Hurricane Michael, like a year after that, this was before I was in, but I've heard horror stories of people's houses flooding. As not being in that position, I didn't see all the reports, but I heard horror stories of many homes flooding. And now, last rain event, we only had one instance where something happened, and it wasn't from stormwater coming into the house. It was a sewage problem. So we've seen a point to where the stormwater is no longer affecting multiple houses. Of course, I'd like to see some things tweaked as far as how we're handling stormwater and all that. And, I'm sure there's, that this Friday we're going to talk about stormwater. And this Tuesday, at this upcoming meeting, we're going to be talking about ways forward to fund stormwater and all that. That was the biggest learning curve for me once I got in was it's not as easy as you have a plan, do it. You walked around with me, you saw some of the plans I had, and I've tried, and I'm going to keep trying to make it better. But, I'm only one vote, and that's not to say that people have voted against me, but there's also policies and things in place that there's a reason why certain things haven't been done yet. And it's really comes down to really talking to people and figuring out what we can do. It's a lot slower process than I anticipated, but fingers crossed we can keep pushing and make stormwater better and better.
Yeah. So zoning. I want to talk a little bit about was it an oil change place or something?
Oh, Grease Pro, yeah.
Yeah, Grease Pro. So what's the story behind that?
So ultimately,
I know this is a controversial topic, but I wanted to kind of, because I've seen, as the Peanut Gallery on Facebook, they're kind of running with this. So explain it in and out. What's the ordinance code, like all of that? Everything is good, right?
So basically, yeah. And first, let me say I totally understand people being upset about it. I mean, they over in that area, it's a very unique situation because the citizens that live behind Greaseboro are not Lynn Haven citizens. They fall under unincorporated Bay County. So but where the business is being built is in Lynn Haven. So it's like this unique situation where just very unique. That being said, I empathize with the people behind there. I get it. They're worried about more traffic, potentially more flooding or more stormwater. I get it. And it's really, really, if you watch the first meeting that we talked about it, yeah, you can see it on my face. I was very conflicted on how to handle the situation, but because I'm relatively new to the office,
Yeah.
and but what it comes down to ultimately is the way that the state statutes are now, and the way things are set up. With it being a right to build state, if they meet all the check boxes, it's their property and they're allowed to build, and they did meet all the check boxes.
Yeah.
So ultimately, some cities don't even bring development orders in front of the commission. It's we have a planning commission and we have the board of commissioners, and by the time it comes to us, if everything's checked off, I mean, we can vote no, but
why would you?
Well, yeah.
Why would you if everything's checked off?
Yeah.
I mean, unless you are looking out for unincorporated Bay County. It's kind of funny that would be a thing. So, like, there's no conflicting zoning issues with the county versus that, or it just doesn't matter?
Well, to me, I think this is a good example of why we need to look at zoning. The city of Lynn Haven actually doesn't have zoning. We have what's called the future land use map, which means like in the future, this is what can be built here.
Yeah.
Rather than saying, right now, this is what is allowed. This, and when you zone things, you can specifically zone them to what exactly can be built there. The way it's set up now, basically, they'll say like, all right, this is residential, low density residential. Well, they come before the commission and they do a development order. And, one of the things is they can do a change to the future land use map and ask for that to be changed and stuff. But it's not you can't make it as specific. It's more of like, this is what we'd like to see in the future. If you have actual zoning, when someone buys a piece of property, they know that that's what it's zoned for. Yeah. Right. So like I, as a customer of potentially buying property, can look at the zoning and know, okay, well, I don't want to buy that piece of property because the city has zoned it to where this is really meant for this type of business or this type of. And so if you already have it zoned before someone buys it, I'm not really going against your property rights because you bought it knowing what it's zoned for. Yeah. Versus future land use map is more of like a suggestion. It's not an actual true, this is the zone. Yeah. And that's
so how would you start zoning in Lynn Haven? Obviously there's got to be a vote, but what's the process to get that done?
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is normally what happens is, for whatever reason, it happened a long time ago. There was zoning, and then they took it away and decided to opt for just the future land use map. And I don't know why they did that. No one that even works at the city now was there when they changed it. So there is no like history of why they did that. Yeah. Most of the time it's the other way, is people already have zoning and then they add a future land use map just to help out. Yeah. And so it's a very unique situation where we can't just like go to the city of Panama City and be like, hey, how did you handle this? Because they haven't. Yeah. And you can't just go to like
Well, hey, they are my dad's having this issue right now. So you know where they live. Mm-hmm. And so at the end of that street, you remember it was like an old there's like an old house that looked like it was gonna like fall to the ground. Mm-hmm. A commercial company came in and bought it, and they're trying to have that area rezoned for commercial like use. Or I don't know all the different codes that it's called, but the city of Panama City is trying to zone it to where it can be like goes from single family dwelling or something like that to like apartment complex. And my dad was like, "No, dude, this is a freaking neighborhood. Like, what are they planning on building there?" Mm-hmm. I get it if you want to put like a quadplex there or something like that, whatever. Because the quadplex townhomes that we're starting to see in areas of St. Andrews and Panama City, those actually look all right. But if you're talking about like I'm going to be putting like 20, 30 units there, which it's very possible in that area, depending on how it's built, that is like, hell no. Like, I don't want that there. So that is why zoning is important as well, because my dad also pays attention to local meetings. So he knew that this was coming up for a vote. I was like, no, like, unless you can tell me what's going to be built there. And I was like, right. And they're not required to tell you what's going to be built there because as soon as they have it zoned. Actually, there's a zoning issue. Yeah, I got to tell you a funny story. So when I was I was running for office and I went to Camping World. I sat down with the general manager there, and I can't remember his name. And so I went in and, I was trying, you know how it is. I was beating bushes. I was trying to raise money for my campaign and all that. And so I went in there and has one of the best reputations on the county commission, or at least I thought. But I went in there to go talk to this gentleman, and this is a zoning thing. I think it's crazy. they lease that property, right? Like they basically rent. The backside of their property, they already have campers and RVs. They're on the backside of the property. It's gravel back there, right? And they wanted to asphalt it. Can't do it. It's got to be rezoned. But it's only it's only like 30 feet. 30 or 40 feet is what's in that zone for residential. And they need to be commercial. So they already have RVs and campers on that spot on gravel. They just want to asphalt it so it'll match everything else that they have. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. He had asked me, he goes, what do you think about that? And I said, well, I believe in property rights. If the person that owns the property wants to make that commercial, they should have the right to be able to asphalt it. Let them asphalt it. And he's like, yeah, well, one of the guys in the commission ended up going and getting all these petitions signed in the community for them not to do it. And then they were like, because there's some type of process where you got to go when you're trying to have something rezoned. I don't remember I've forgotten more than what most people will ever know about the zoning process for the county. But they're banned for like 1 year without being able to go and ask. And you can only go and ask 3 times. I guess in Tallahassee, it goes to Tallahassee for the rezoning or whatever. You can only ask 3 times and then you're cut out completely and you can never ask for it again. It'll never be rezoned. So you get shot down 3 times, you can't get something rezoned. Crazy. So, but what's funny about it is like, I understand both sides of that, but with government, it's common freaking sense. Look and see who owns the property. It's already being used for commercial use. You don't have a problem with them parking campers, but you're not going to let them asphalt it. So when it comes to government and like with city stuff, do you have any examples like that you've seen where you're like, man, like this needs to be changed? Obviously, you're starting to see that the zoning is an issue. What are some other issues with Lynn Haven that you'd like to see change?
Yeah, so, that's, I think it's very important to not have
not overregulate.
Yeah, I think here being in the Panhandle, I think most of us are anti-government overreach, right? Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I'd like to, give people the benefit of the doubt, and I think a lot of it just comes to oversight of policy writing. The people that wrote the policies maybe didn't consider certain angles, and but if a policy is a policy, and it's a policy unless you vote on it to change the policy. And so I've seen some minor issues in Lynn Haven. That was one of the points when I was campaigning, is a lot of these policies or ordinances are from like 1996. And our city's obviously had changed a lot since then. Fortunately, there is a plan in place, and we have been going through it where we're updating policies, and that's a great thing. There's verbiage that's outdated. There's just stuff that's confusing. My opinion is, I understand that ultimately a policy is in place to protect the city, but also to protect citizens based on the certain laws or whatever. But it's of my opinion that policy should also be, at an 8th grade reading level or lower, so that anyone that reads that ordinance understands what the laws of the land are. Yeah. So I'm in the camp of, I understand that this ordinance is technically what you're trying to say, but if someone reads it, they shouldn't have to contact the city to see what this actually means. And so I've been working real hard on that. Not just me, but the commission as a whole. That's the reason why I made the joke with Brian Cloudis when he was on the other day, where it was like, sometimes you just have to realize that, because, we've seen some elections that haven't gone the way that it should. Look at Joe Biden. That's a perfect example. But you also have to realize that
people in the United States, the reading level that they're on, the comprehension level that they're on. Like you're not dealing. I learned that so much when I was running for office that like there are things where I would sit there and I would just think that like everybody knows this. This is like basic common sense. Like obviously it's not going to be, anyway, and then people would sit there and they literally would be lost in the sauce on stuff. And it's like, this is something you should have learned in freaking school. If I'm having to explain to you, that's kind of like going and knocking on doors and like we're sitting here talking about zoning. There are people that are going to listen to this because I get on average about 2,500 listens within like 5 days on this. There are going to be people that just now found out that the city does zoning or that the city doesn't have zoning. They're going to find out what zoning means. They're going to find out that, unincorporated Bay County, what does that mean? They're going to go look that up. And these are things that should be being taught pretty much in school. It's amazing. I don't think that our education system explains government better on the local side of things like they probably should.
Very focused on the federal
on
side.
the national side, because it's like, this is the executive branch, and this is the, and they go through all the president, Senate, House, and it's like, okay, cool. What's the county commissioner do? Because I can't tell you how many times I knocked on the door.
Yeah, in fact, that kind of, to go back to one of the things that you talked about earlier, is what's been one of the hardest things, is that as the Board of Commissioners, we do not have, it's not like we can just wave a magic wand and make things happen. Some people don't, if you were to ask the average person that's not involved in local politics, they probably don't know what the mayor or the commission does.
Yeah.
And it's very ingrained in people's mind that if they're upset about something like, it's the people in office. And I'm like, it might be that in some situations, but some situations it's not. We write policy. We don't go to the employees and tell them to mow the grass.
Yeah. Well, I think
the average was 96.
The average is 96?
I was off by 4 points.
Yeah, you were. Wow. Is that high?
Well,
it's the average.
Well, it goes.
So
my understanding of IQ is 100 is average, right? And then if you're like 116, that's like 16% above average.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's my understanding. Don't quote me on that because I could definitely be wrong.
Okay, it was higher than what I thought. Maybe, I don't know what I was listening. I was listening to a podcast and they talked about it. They had said like, the average is like 68 or something like that. It's almost 70. And I was like, I don't think that's good. Like, I think that's really bad.
I do know this though. So in the cybersecurity world, at least on my side of things, a large portion of it is writing policies, reading policies, and things like that.
So you were used to, and I think that's why I thought like I was a good candidate for running for office, because that's all I do is deal with mil-spec all day long. That's all I do is make sure that stuff is in regs.
Right.
But you have experience with writing policy, overseeing policy, make sure that things are, so that kind of is like a no-brainer of who you would want in office.
Right. The hard thing is knowing that, and I had to teach myself this, I have to be very conscious about it, is because I look at policies all the time and read them all the time. It's just human nature to assume that other people do. And they don't. The reason I understand policy and stuff is because that's what I do for a living. And one of the things I learned, and we get trained, is even my boss had to tell me this a while back, like, hey, you need to be more specific, like you need to explain stuff at the 8th grade level. And then, we go through training and he's right. Like you're taught when you write policies, you got to write, the average American reads at the 8th grade level. And then the Wall Street Journal is like the highest level reading level that
actually fact check that. Can we fact check that? I'm sorry, Ken. I'm giving you stuff to do.
But
he's like, no, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah. If I remember the training properly, Wall Street Journal writes at like the 10th grade level. But that's about as high on average we read stuff.
Yeah.
So we got to make sure that if we write, in my opinion, if we write policies, people should be able to read it.
It's like the freaking ballots, bro. I was sitting. Okay, so we had a grill out at my house, and we looked at the ballot with a couple of friends. I know Kendall, my buddy Chad, my next door neighbor Rich, and we sat there and we went through the ballot and we read those amendments that we're trying to say, like 3, 4, and even some of that stuff was worded, and some things are vague. Very vague, and then some things are like kind of like a cliffhanger. And the reason why I said that, one of them had to do with the homestead exemption. It passed, but it was really, really funny how they explained how the annual assessment is going to take place. They don't really explain it. They're just, you know exactly what I'm saying. So it's kind of like, I need more information on this. Yeah. There's not enough that's there. Just like there wasn't enough that was there for the right to hunt and fish. It wasn't as, when you start using words like, I think the words that was used in that policy were like by like traditional means. And I was like, traditional means black powder rifles, like spears. Like
Right.
what does that mean?
Right.
Like, so I mean, and I know a lot of people are like, man, you're just getting caught up on semantics. No. That's important when it comes to legal jargon.
Right.
Because if you're not, it's very, very easy to, and I think it was kind of like, you know what I was really surprised about on those amendments? Why wouldn't you want spending limits on candidates running for office? That was one of the things that we voted for. That last amendment that you voted for?
6?
Yeah, I think so. It was, it literally was making it to where there would be spending limits on candidates. Where it's like, okay, you can raise all the money in the world, but you still have a spending limit. Like, or maybe it's a spending limit. I don't think it had anything to do with how much you raise. There's nothing that was going to say that you couldn't raise an amount of money, but it was like how much you spend.
Yeah, writing, it's a good example what you were saying about how things are written are important.
Yeah.
Like, for example, one of the policies that we just updated was an ordinance on how tall your grass can be. And the way it was written was then again, this is from like 1996, right?
Yeah.
So it was outdated. It said, you can't have grass over 12 inches. And I was like, well, we got to define what grass is, but 2, like
grass from weeds.
Yeah, right. So what is grass, and what is and I said, and also, Bahia grass can be 19 inches overnight. So the intent is not to go around and be like, "Ha, I got you. You didn't mow yesterday, and you got Bahia grass at 19 inches." That's not the intent, And so, someone made the comment like, well, code enforcement knows that. I understand that code enforcement knows that, right? But people like me and you that are at this table with common sense know what the intent of that policy is. But what if you have a mean neighbor that sees grass that's over 12 inches in one little, 12-inch by 12-inch spot on someone's yard? And now they're going to call code enforcement. Now code enforcement is going to come out here and inspect this house, and they just wasted gas money. They wasted man hours over something because we didn't clearly say what the intent of the ordinance actually is, which is that you don't want an overgrown yard where snakes and rats can get into other.
I'm kind of weird about that. I'm sitting here and I'm like thinking about this. Like, how do I actually look at this? And so I'm for property rights. So if it's not a hindrance and it's not hurting somebody, it's not dangerous, it's none of the government's business.
Oh, yeah, and I hear you. And I'm with you. I'm with you there.
Code enforcement, after Hurricane Michael, they hammered down on a lot of residents for things being out of code. You're just now getting around to the mall. I want to know what the fines look like on the company that owns that property. I want to know. And there's a reason why you don't know, because there hasn't been. The whole thing, and maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, comment below and tell me that I'm wrong and prove it to me and send me the link, because I'm fairly certain that I have already looked this up, but you might know something that I don't know. But what I do know
You
is
could do a
that
public records request.
yeah, do the public. But my whole point on that is like it's just another source to generate revenue for the city, and you're gonna try to regulate people to get that money.
Right. Ultimately, code enforcement should be to protect other people, not to a law. And this is my belief: if a law is ever created solely for the purpose of revenue generation, that law should not exist.
Yeah.
The role of the government is to be a referee. So that's to make sure people aren't hurting each other. So in the situation like the overgrown yard, the intent is to protect other yards from getting pests that they don't want, like rats and snakes and stuff. So if that's the intent, my main point, if that's the intent, we need that intent to be known in the policy, black and white, clear what the intent is. So fortunately that happened. We updated the policy. But that was kind of my point is if you're going to have a policy, we need to make sure that it's written so someone at the 8th grade level can understand. Yeah. I'm an educated guy. I don't think I have a reading level much higher than 10th grade, if I'm being honest. I don't think most people's reading level is as high as they think it is. Like I can read anything, but there's, look at that, like the amendments.
The reading comprehension portion is very, it lacks pretty highly out there. But I mean, so it's not even so much reading. I mean, people can literally listen to something where somebody will say something and listen, man, we learned about rumors when we were kids. It's the same thing. Like somebody, take for instance, the Lynn Haven meetings. I can't tell you how many times I've been online or on Facebook and I've been scrolling and I read a post about something that went on. I was like, I was at that meeting and that is not what was said. And it's like, and it was like, and they're literally saying, go back and listen to this portion of the meeting, to go listen to it. And I'm like, yep, literally just went there. It's not what was said. You took that out of context. The thing that I hate, I know I'm getting a little off. Thing that I hate is when people do it intentionally. You intentionally twisted it or you intentionally didn't put other information in there. And then you pass it off on, well, oops, my bad. And it's like, and then no. Like that's no longer like a reading level issue or a reading comprehension issue. That's just like you already had it in your mind about something. You put it out there and now you have people that aren't paying attention to the meetings. And then that happens. But you've confused something that was very, very simple. So, but yeah, I mean, when it comes to these amendments and how they were worded on the ballot.
Yeah.
You
shouldn't have to Google something.
Yeah. It should have been a little bit more in black and white on what they wanted.
And I get people like, if they say something and it's misinformation and it's not intentional, we've all done it. I'm guilty of it.
Yeah.
That's
freedom of speech.
Yeah, and
you can lie.
Yeah, and I'm
but
but I try not to get mad about that stuff. But it is a little disheartening when someone says something that's not accurate. Someone explains it to them, just trying to help, and be like, actually, this is the context behind it, and then the person doesn't go back and say, you know what, you're right. So oh my bad. They just like go in even further.
I'm not going to get clicks, bro. I'm not going to get clicks. I'm not going to get likes. I'm not going to get those views.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I don't want to get specific, but I do think this may be a hot take or a tinfoil hat type thing. But me personally, as Sam Peebles talking, back in the 80s, there was the cocaine epidemic, right? I think in today's world, we have a dopamine epidemic. Which, what I mean by that is dopamine is a hit to your brain, the chemical that hits your brain.
Yeah.
That when someone if you do like a Twitter post or a Facebook post, we've all done it. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, I got 40 likes or whatever. That makes you feel good. Yeah. Or like someone comments on your post and agrees with you. Like, oh, I'm glad to see someone agrees with me. It's just a little dopamine hit, right? But we've gotten to a world where people are addicted to that feeling. I mean, you've seen it now after the election. People are like taking videos of themselves crying about the election results, or filming themselves talking to their 6-year-old kid about the election. You're not doing that because you're sad. You're doing that because you're taking a situation that you know you're going to get reactions and to get likes, because you want that dopamine hit. And I think, we're all guilty of it, but I think we are in a situation where you guys take a step back and be like, am I doing this because I'm addicted to that feeling, or am I doing it because I'm doing it for the right reasons?
It's hard when you have like a show like this, because you want to know that it's kind of taken off. You're not wasting your time. So I've been guilty of it really, really bad here lately. Where I'll sit there and I'll be like, how many views did I get? I'll be like, YouTube's, first of all, YouTube can piss off. They suck. They do. Oh, dude, you can't tell me. I don't know if they screw with views based on, like, maybe I'm on some sort of list because of like being conservative or something. Because they do that. They do that. These social media platforms, you can be put on a list based on what you look at on your phone, and everything links. So, but anyway, I'll look at the views on YouTube and I'll be like, I got 20 views on that within like 2 days. What? Come on. And then I'll go to Spotify and I'll be like, I got 2,500 listens. Something's not adding up here. Something's not right.
Well, don't get me wrong.
But so I'll sit there though, and I'll focus on these things. And yeah, you're right. There is a little bit of a high that I feel like, where it's like, oh my God, like when I was putting out reels, like during my campaign, it'd be like 787 views in an hour. And I'd be like, yeah, dude, that's freaking awesome. And that makes me want to create more and more and more and more and more. And it was like you're right. It's like a dopamine hit straight to the brain. But we live in a society where everything is immediate. Mm-hmm. Dude, you can literally order groceries you can work from home, order groceries from your home. You never have to drive anywhere. You can Uber. Like, you don't have to own a car anymore, really. Like, if you own a car right now in the society that we live in, it's just because that's a first world thing that you think that you have to have. You don't have to have it. We don't even need them anymore because of like Uber and stuff. So you can literally live your life. You can cut a ton of bills just by using modern day conveniences that have been there. Mm-hmm. Like, no, I think you're right. I think there is an epidemic with that. People getting on.
Now, metrics are important though. If you're doing, you're obviously doing this podcast because you care about what you're doing, but at the same time, you do want other people to benefit from it. And to do that, you got to know what's important to other people. Yeah. And you get that by looking at your metrics. There's nothing wrong with wanting to put the best product out there and reaching the most amount of people you possibly can. Sometimes
Sometimes it's about what other people want to hear, but not really.
Well, yeah.
No. I know what you meant, but it is like I have to understand that some views aren't going to be as good as others based on that, but it's still who I wanted to have on. Like, the business owners, having business owners on promoting their business. It's one of those things, and I explained this to Alan Branch. I think it might have been on the podcast or it might have got cut, but it was a part where I explained, like, I like to know where my money is going. So if you're a staunch Democrat that is against guns and you're for mutilating children, I don't want to eat at your restaurant. And so, but if I know that we have business owners, local business owners that aren't part of a chain, and it's like, hey, I'm for the community. I do these outreach programs, half of, it's like Alan talking about how much money they donate or whatever to different things. Yes, you can go get a beer for a lot cheaper than history class and El Weirdo, and you can get food for a lot cheaper. But knowing the person behind the business and knowing where your money is going and knowing that it is keeping the spirit of downtown Panama City alive and knowing his heart behind it, I want to know those people in the community. And not only do I want to know about it, I want other people to know about those people because I don't want them to go out of business.
Right.
I want them to stay in business. Same with politicians. I want politicians to come on because we, again, live in this society where people just jump on freaking Facebook and they read and they believe whatever they read because they're a bunch of sheep. You know, and it's like, no, I'm going to bring that person on. I want you to know who that person is as a person. Hey, you might find out that you still look at them the same way. You might look at it as, wow, you know what? Maybe that dude's not a bad dude, whatever it may be. But the point is like, dude, everybody is the main character of their own story. We really are. Everybody's important. There's nobody who's more important than anybody. I don't care who you are. Donald Trump is no better than you or me. All right. He's just a man. He is a man. And when you start putting other people above other people, yeah, dude, I swear to God, I'm fairly certain that in the Bible it talks about that and how you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't have idols. So that's the reason behind the podcast. But no, I agree with you on the dopamine stuff. Oh, I got 60 comments.
Yeah, dude.
On something that was false.
If you want that dopamine hit, just go on a Facebook group that talks about something specific and then talk about that. You'll get a lot of comments. But and you know, I'm guilty of it with the sports stuff I do. I make sure I maintain a solid presence on social media. And so, you know, like on Twitter or something, if I get something that goes semi-viral, I'm like, oh, it's pretty cool. People actually care about what I have to say. That's pretty neat.
So let's talk about that real quick. So how long have you been doing your podcast?
Just finished the 5th season.
So 5 years?
I guess this will be the 5th year next year in March. Yeah.
So what are we supposed to see from the Braves coming up? They got a big things coming?
Well, I mean, they had a lot of injuries this past year. So the season didn't go as everyone had hoped, but they have Ronald Acuna coming back, who's an MVP candidate every year. They've got Spencer Strider coming back, who is second place Cy Young voting. Chris Sale, who's still on the team, will win Cy Young this year. They've got a solid team. I just, you know, growing up, I was always the nerd that was really into stats. And
why did you never become a Marlins fan?
The Marlins have
the Rays. Sorry.
So the Marlins and the Rays are expansion teams. So they have not been around for very long.
What? Well, they were around when we were kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're also closer to Atlanta than those two cities.
Yeah, we are.
And so back when I was a kid, just like everybody else, the Braves were on TBS.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's funny you say that because my whole family, well, I shouldn't say my whole family. I grew up next door to my grandparents. They were huge Braves fans. They watched every game. And if they didn't, they taped it and then they'd watch it. And so they were huge Braves fans. My older sister was a huge Braves fan. And so I always wanted to be different. I was like, I'm going to be a Marlins fan. And so whenever the Marlins won in 97, I kind of I asked my mom for a Marlins shirt and all that. But over time, I realized, my grandparents converted me. Going over to their house every Tuesday night, I think it was, and watching the Braves. I mean, I just kind of fell in love with the team and been a Braves fan ever since. And yeah.
Yeah, man. I used to, that was my grandfather. He was a huge Atlanta Braves fan. He took me to my first Braves game. You went with me to take my son to his first baseball game to go see them play, and they won. It was great. That
was awesome. A crazy game.
It was. There at the end. Anyway, but yeah, no, the Braves have always been kind of like that. But we moved down to Tampa, and I went to a couple Rays games, and I was like, I might kind of convert over to being a Rays fan, but there's something about the Braves. When I go into the Trop to go watch the Rays play, it almost feels commercial, like generic. It's almost kind of like you're eating at a chain restaurant. When I go into the Atlanta Braves stadium, I still feel it. Like it feels like home. Like and then watching them play, I don't know. There's something about the teams. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. Like it's just kind of like I feel like if you're wearing a Braves jersey, there's a little bit more honor there.
Which is crazy because the Rays are a very good franchise.
No.
But yeah, you're right. The Atlanta ownership has done an excellent job of creating an experience and an environment. In fact, when they moved from Turner Field, I was like, dude, when you move, this is going to be a third park in my lifetime, and I'm not that old, But it was smart. They moved to where they are now. They created the Battery.
I remember Turner Field. Oh, dude, that was the first time I'd ever been there.
Mm-hmm.
They have a Sitka store. Like, there's all kinds of shopping that's in there.
Yeah.
They got a Louis Vuitton. I think they got a Rolex in there. Like, there's all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, are you serious right now? And then the restaurants down there are actually pretty decent. And then, yeah, you don't even have to go in the stadium to go watch the game. You can just be outside. We talked about that when we were there. It's like you just go in one of the little pubs or one of the little sports bars there, watch the game, and it's going on right there. So it's like you're still in that area.
Yeah.
I think it was great.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like tailgating in a way. You're there with like-minded fans of the same team. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it was freaking awesome, and that was a good game that we watched. So we're skipping. I'm just kind of like jumping. Cybersecurity. What is it that you exactly do? I know we talked about like policy oversight and things like that, but like into the specifics of the parts of cybersecurity and like kind of like go over a brief overview of like what you actually do.
Okay.
You're going to be like spreadsheets.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because when you do the Security Plus certification course that I teach, boot camp, it's 36 hours long.
Don't ever tell anybody what you do.
So 36 hours we don't have, but I'll give you the rundown. So cybersecurity in a nutshell is defending the network of computers that you're using or devices. And the way I like to explain it is it's about 80% policies and procedures to prevent things from happening, because the weakest link in the chain of cybersecurity are human beings making mistakes. Then it's about 10% defense, active defense, and then 10% offense. So you have 80% of all cybersecurity is done via creating policies to make sure people don't make mistakes, to make sure that they set up their networks in a strong way, and making sure that their computers are configured in a way that they're as secure as they can be. That's about 80% of cybersecurity. All the cool stuff you see on TV where they're like in cyber op rooms where they're like, oh, look, China's hacking us right now or whatever, and they seeing all that stuff. Not many people do that. That's like a last line of defense. And then there's about 10% where you're actively doing ethical hacking, trying to figure out things, but renaissance and all that. But reconnaissance, I said that word wrong. But basically what I do is I fall in that 80%. And I basically, in the government, any device, whether that's a tablet, anything, a device that can connect to the internet, either whether that's a laptop, computer, tablet, whatever. If it has an IP address, it needs to be accredited to be on the network. By that, I mean, they have to go through, over 1,600 checks, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But they've got to go through all these checks to make sure that it is accredited to be allowed to be on the network. What I do is I go behind and I audit all that, and I make sure that the people, one, are creating their policies properly, are following their policies, and then I will also look at their vulnerabilities on their machines. They have to vulnerability scan them to see what the vulnerabilities are. I have to make sure that they're doing that properly. I have to make sure that they're within the proper threshold, and I audit cybersecurity networks and make sure that they're allowed to be on the network.
It's got to suck, like, going to, like, especially if being a commissioner in Lynn Haven, you walk in and you're like, that's actually not good. Y'all need to fix that. Like, and you go into places and you see their problems.
Well, I will say this: the city of Lynn Haven has an excellent IT staff.
Really?
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have them. When I started talking to them, I'm like, oh, okay, we're in good hands. Good.
Yeah.
But I've been to other places, and I'm obviously not going to name them. But I look at like financial institutions or other things. I'm like, whew, this is not good. You're still using Windows 7. You are vulnerable to an attack. You know?
All of your people are going to lose their money.
Yes.
Like tonight.
And you're going to be liable for it. You know? Dude, one of the craziest hacks I think I've ever read about was, well, I guess I should say attack. Not all attacks are hacks. Was a financial institution. It was not local. But basically, someone or their customers were complaining that money was being stolen out of their account, and they didn't understand why. And so they didn't know. And, you know, the IT staff went in and checked, like, our firewalls are good. Our policies are good. Everything's good. I don't understand. Like, I don't see any network activity that suggests that there's any type of hacking going on. I don't know what's going on. Well, they found out later, and this is genius, is that the bad guys, quote unquote bad guys or whatever, they were hacking into the camera system and watching when people came in and set up their online accounts and saw the tellers typing in a username and password and just watching the video. And so they didn't have to hack anything. They just watched a video. Well, they hacked the cameras, but outside of the cameras, they didn't have to hack into the system, like the financial system. They just wrote down the username and password, logged in, and transferred money out of people's accounts. It's crazy.
So they're like one of those office space. I've always wondered if that was actually a thing. If that could actually, do you know have you ever seen that movie?
Dude, I was like 12 years old.
Yeah, it's like 1 penny. They take like 1 penny out of everybody's account or something like that. And it happened in one night. And it's like millions.
You know, that's how it was discovered that other countries can hack you, is from that. So they probably got that from that. There's a book called I think it's called Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Excellent read. But it's about how the act of hacking was discovered. Yeah. And it was because he wasn't even a cyber guy or an IT guy. He just happened to notice that back then you had to charge to use people's computers to be on the internet. It was that long ago. But he noticed that it was off by like a fraction of a penny. Yeah. He's like, this isn't right. And he just kept digging and digging and digging and digging. And the FBI was like, well, did you lose a bunch of money? And he was like, no, but this ain't right. And they're like, well, sorry. If it's not over X amount of dollars, we're not going to do anything about it. So he kept researching and digging further and found out that Russia was hacking into military bases. Yeah. All from a fraction of a penny being stolen.
Yeah, I think when I first got out of the military, I went and worked for PMC. And it's kind of weird because some of the guys that I had met that worked for several agencies, they talk about different types of these. Like, you can literally, at the time, and I'm sure it's gotten better now, it was like you get within 2 feet of someone and you could steal all the data off their phone.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like super easy. It got to the point to where there's a couple of times doing certain things where I've like put stuff I have a Faraday bag I take everywhere with me now. Like, airports are like the worst. If you want somebody to know, that's the reason why it's so funny, dude. When I was running for office, there would be people that would try to talk about, all your stuff can get hacked and blah. I was like, I'm not worried about any of my stuff getting hacked because I don't have anything to hide. Because if you come out and you say, I got his browser history or whatever, I'm like, I don't care. That's fine. And then, but the other part of that is that people are only going to see what I want them to see anyway. And I was big about it there for a while, man. It was like Faraday everywhere I went because I was paranoid about some stuff. But and then I figured out that the guys that I were dealing with weren't they don't have that knowledge to be able to do that kind of stuff. But dude, there are some people out there that can. It's a thing. Like
Yeah, I mean,
can steal somebody's.
And you can download free tools that are not illegal.
Yep.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do for fun is
Oh no, here we go.
no,
Please, I hope it's illegal.
it's not illegal. It's a learning lesson to people. Like if you go to like Universal Studios or Disney or whatever.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, so like
Hook up to their Wi-Fi.
you know your iPhone has AirDrop.
Yeah.
Right? And so some people just leave that on, you know? And so I just have a meme that says, "Why did you open this, you big dummy?"
Oh.
And so I'll just see who has AirDrop on and just send that picture, and some people freaking open it. You don't know who I am,
dude.
You know?
Golly. Yeah, no, that is how information gets stolen. Not only is that, you can people's lives have been ruined. Actually, speaking of like candidates for office, there's a guy, I can't remember what state it was. I read about this. The guy was running for office, and they had put some crazy crap on his computer. He got busted for having stupid stuff on his computer. Mm-hmm. Got arrested. Went to court. He swore up and down he had never like seen any of this. He had never put any of this on his computer. And it was like 2 years later, a family member who was really big into cybersecurity and all of that found out that all of that stuff had been loaded on his computer from outside source. And so he was telling the truth. He never downloaded it. They released him. He actually got out of prison. Someone ruined this man's life, though.
Yep.
For 2 years because his security on his computer. And I always tell people, like, because I know just enough about IT to make me dangerous. I try to pretend like I'm stupid most of the time when it comes to it. But, I mean, I've taken Sec Plus and stuff like that. But I always like to tell people, it's like, dude, like I learned a lot about this from Kendall because he's a engineer.
Yeah, Kendall's probably over here listening to me like Sam has no idea what he's talking about.
But he's the one that was like, dude, like, and he explained the like how important it was to like even put a different password on my router for my home. Mm-hmm. A lot of people keep that the same.
Dude, listen, you're right.
Yeah.
Because most of your routers at home come with the default username and password, and they all have the same IP address because you're using a private a private network, right? Like literally, let me tell you something. This is not illegal, and I'm going to explain to you why this is important. Uh-huh. You can go to almost anyone's house. You can take your phone, you can pull open your phone, and you can type in the browser 192.168.0.1. Almost guaranteed, it's going to pop up with the graphical user interface of the router that's in that house. Mm-hmm. And you can type in admin as the username and then password as the password. Or you can just walk over to the router, flip it on like this and look at it. And you can get in and you can change all their stuff on their router and they'd never know. So
to where like this is how we I'm not going to go there.
Well, that story you told is a real story.
Yeah.
There's another story that I know of where there was a child predator in someone's neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they came over and knocked on, the predator came over and knocked on, he was just moved into the neighborhood, knocked on these people's house to introduce himself. And he either made a weird comment about their daughter or like picked her up or something, and it was like really weird. It gave the people weird vibes.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons. And so they reported the person. Well, the person found out that they got reported. So because this family's router was not secure, he went in, connected to their router and started downloading illegal images. And that family got in trouble because obviously the FBI got flagged.
Yeah.
Because whenever the first sign of going, when someone says on the movies and the TV or whatever, and they say, "Oh, I'm going to go search for their IP address." The first thing they're looking at is the IP address of your router, not your individual device first.
Yeah.
They got to use network address translation. That's a whole other story.
Tracking.
But when someone says, "I'm going to track their IP address," the first thing they're looking for is your router that goes out to the internet. And so they saw a bunch of illegal stuff being downloaded to that IP address. It flagged, and they got in trouble as a retaliation for reporting him for being a creep. So you got to be careful.
It was like some of those, back when I was running for office, I was getting those text messages from like these random numbers. And then I had a friend, and he was like, "Well, these are 3 locations that it's coming from." And he was able to match it all down, and it was all by IP address. And I was like, "Holy crap." And he's like, "Yep. So do you want their actual address?" Like, and it was like, "Yes, I do." I still haven't capitalized on any of that yet. Mm-hmm. I'm biding my time. But it's, but then again, it's one of those, you have to think about the legality behind even knowing that. But it's kind of funny. Yes. Like that stuff is for real. And yeah, people's lives get ruined every single day based on that.
There's very simple things to protect yourself too, though, that many people don't do. You know, change your username and password as soon as you get it. Set up 2-factor authentication, where I know you've seen it where a lot of places do it now. Whenever you put your username and password, they'll send you a text message, and then you have to put the code in. That's very important. That's one of the most secure things you can do, easy secure things you can do that hardly cost anything. You can change your channel. There's so many different, you can change, you can hide your SSID, which is like the name of your network. I mean, there's so many things you can do. You can go into your router and literally make it set up to where only specific devices can connect to it, the MAC addresses of your device. I mean, there's so many things you can do, and you can Google that and figure that stuff out in 10 minutes. I mean, shoot, if anyone's listening to this, just give me a call.
Yeah.
I'll help you out. I mean, you really do need to be doing this stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, speaking of that, I'm happy you said that too, because when I had Vicky on, she was great. She explained that being up there as the city manager, she wants to be available to everybody. She said, "Give me a call, email me, whatever. I want to talk." You're the same way. It's not hard to get y'all's information either.
No.
It's on the, what is it, city? You can literally just Google city commission phone number.
You can, but also, I mean, I have a Facebook page you can use too. I'm trying to be as available as possible.
Yeah.
We have a cell phone, email that's through the city.
Yeah.
But then I also have a Facebook page. I mean, whatever makes you most comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm there for it. I mean, I think a lot of people, at least in my limited experience, is it's very easy to get in the mindset of politicians, you know, they don't have time to talk to me. Like if you were to go at the state level or above, I mean, they've got hundreds of thousands of constituents potentially. Yeah. I mean, they have to hire staff to read emails and stuff. We don't. Yeah. I mean, if you email me, I'm getting that email.
Yeah.
And if I don't respond to that email, send it again. I'm not going to be mad. Maybe I missed that email, or maybe it went to spam or something.
Yeah.
You're never going to bother me by emailing me or calling me.
Well, the people that are going to email you or call you are actually people that want to see something done, and they want to resolve whatever issue is going on in the city.
Yeah.
Most of the people that show up and they speak, and I told this to Vicky, and I'll say it to you. I mean, dude, like, I stopped going to meetings because of public commentary. Yeah. What did you think about that idea? Did you listen to the Vicky Gaynor interview? What did you think about the idea that I ran by as far as that? The having public commentary on its own night, not publicized. Like, if you want to hear what people are complaining about, what issues people have, you're going to have to show up at the meeting.
Yeah, we'd have to talk to the city attorney to see what exactly is legal with that. But the idea of having a night that's specifically for public commentary, it's like a full-up town hall, I think that's a good idea. I mean, sometimes people, you know, there could be a situation where someone is there for an issue that has to do with, like, a sidewalk or then their form of communication is to talk to you face to face, but they didn't realize they could call me.
Yeah.
And maybe so they go to public commentary. Maybe they get nervous being in front of a bunch of people, or maybe they feel like intimidated because other people are up there complaining about something. The idea of a smaller setting where people can just come in and talk to us face to face is a good thing. I mean, I try to have a coffee meet every month where people can sit down with me if they want to talk to face to face.
But that's not.
But it's not the same thing.
Yeah, people. But that's my point. It's the fact that. So if you were to do this, first of all, there's nothing. I've already looked into it. There's nothing in your charter that's against it. There's nothing against the Florida state statute that's against it. I did my research on it because I literally, when I go to a meeting, I want to know about what's happening, what's being voted on, and things like that. I don't have time to sit around for 2 hours while you talk about something that's just complete nonsense that you've been saying for fucking, a year and a half. I don't want to hear about it. So I actually want to know what's going on with the city. Your individual, screwed up mentality of conspiracy theories with public officials is annoying. And so take it down the road or go watch your show or go check your, Facebook page, whatever. I want to actually know what's going on with the city. But if you still can have public commentary for the things that are being voted on, like you normally do at these meetings, what I'm saying is public commentary where people just want to get up and bitch about something. It's like, cool, dude, you get your own night. It's all about you. You could finally, these people, the majority, don't show up to your meet and greets or Jamie's meet and greets. Like I talk to Jamie Warwick pretty regularly, at least once a month, or at least I have, consistently. And every single time I talk to him on the phone, he talks about his thing at Slim Chickens, where he has his meet and greet. And he's always like, I think the most people that he has ever had show up to Slim Chickens was about the Ricky Ramey situation, and it was only like 5. Mm-hmm. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Yeah. Normally, it's like the same 2 or 3 people that show up to talk to him, and it's because those people care. But the people that are getting up there and they're screaming at the top of their lungs about change and I demand you to do this and that and the other. Yeah, I mean, and hey, look, I've gone to a Lynn Haven city meeting before, and I thought I told the mayor that, hey, man, the way that you handled this was wrong. Yeah. And in my opinion, that's a citizen that's making a deal about it. But I would have gone to public commentary to say that because I wasn't doing it to be on camera. I was doing it because I'm a citizen of Lynn Haven. Mm-hmm. So I think you would eliminate the bull crap. People aren't going to show up and just start spilling their guts when they know that they're not going to be on camera and it's not going to be on TV where everybody can watch. That's the issue. That dopamine hit that you were talking about earlier, they like looking at themselves on a screen just saying words. Mm-hmm. That's all it is most of the time. It's like you address... it's like there's a scene in A Few Good Men where the assistant counselor to Lieutenant Caffey looks at Demi Moore, and she just keeps screaming, objection, objection, objection. I strenuously object. And he looks at her afterwards and he's like, you strenuously object. Oh, no, not just an object. It's the same thing where you're just like, oh, you don't have a problem with it. You extremely have a problem with it. And you're just going to keep saying it over and over and over again. Just like I'm doing right now, beating it to death because it has man, dude, it's been kind of like a poison throughout the community because there's been a ton of good things that have happened that we've missed out on because people just want to talk about the same thing over and over and over again. And I think you hit the nail on the head earlier when you said you guys just don't have a magic wand that you just wand over something and just do what everybody wants. Mm-hmm. You actually have to go through a process.
Yeah. And I certainly don't want to ever limit anyone from speaking their mind. But, I mean, there's nothing wrong with exploring ways that maybe there is a night for people that have complaints, even if they want to say the same thing over and over. But now there's a place where they can all come in and we're there mentally ready and prepared to have answers for them when they have questions. Because whenever you go up there, one of the reasons I'm a big fan of the sign-in sheet is because when you're up there, you want to make sure that you catch everything that everyone says because it's important. And so, just as when someone does that sign-in sheet, I don't have to take the first 10 seconds and write down what your name is and what your address is because it's already written down. And the first 10 seconds of what you have to say is the most important thing because now I know what it is exactly you're talking to me about. So I can get into that headspace of wrapping my mind around what the issue is, what you want to tell me. And so that being said, if we have a night where specifically we know we're going to be here
To handle complaints
or handle things that we can fix and not really have to use the brain capacity of how we're going to vote on certain issues, because those will be addressed in public commentary in a sense of, when the citizens are allowed to talk about that issue. And we can just focus on, okay, we know tonight is purely general public commentary. There could be positives to that. Yeah. I'm definitely not opposed to it. And it might be one of those things where we try it out, and if it works, cool. And if it doesn't work, we find out it doesn't work.
Put a time limit on it. Because right now, how long does public commentary actually, what's the time limit on it?
3 minutes.
Well, no. I know per person, but for overall.
There isn't a time limit.
Yeah, exactly. At the regular meeting. I mean, you could still do that same thing if you did the night of the public commentary.
Yeah.
And then it would be nothing but public commentary. You got a problem with something, you can go up there, you can speak your mind. Hell, give them an extra 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever.
That's true. If it was a night only for that, you could extend the 3 minutes because in a normal meeting, we do have business matters to get to.
I do. I also want to ask this, and when people do now, I will say this about the public commentary: is there a reason why there's no? I've only seen it happen maybe 2 or 3 times. One was you. The other one was Pat Perno, where someone voiced a concern, and you handled it right there, where it was like, hey, actually, I did get that. I'm going to be getting back to you on that, or whatever it may be. Is there something, because I've been wondering this myself, I've never asked you, is there something that gets in the way of you actually interacting with somebody during public commentary, or are you guys just trying not to do it?
No, there's nothing from preventing it. I think for me, it's more so anything we say goes on record on the minutes. And I'd rather not say anything than give false information. Okay,
well, that's a good point, because a lot of people like to sit there and be like, well, they had nothing to say when I said this. So it's more of, on a record and then the time restraints.
Yeah, and like I said, you can call me anytime. But let's say someone brings up something controversial, and maybe I don't have the right answer, but I can get the answer, and I can talk to you about it later. I just err on the side of if it's something that I don't want to tell you a lie because of my not having the chance to research what you're saying. I also don't want to get in a situation where I feel like I have to, like if someone was to come up and just start calling me names, I mean, I don't want to get in an environment where I'm going to be calling them names back. That's just not me.
Yeah.
So I'm not a combative person. So if it's like someone call me names, I'm not going to do that. Or on the flip side, if someone's like asking a legitimate question, I'll try to be like, I'll get back to you with that, but I may not have the answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not all knowing. I just got into
this. But if you were to have that separate night, that would give you guys a better time to interact and acknowledge people.
Yeah. And the thing is the sunshine laws, man, like,
dude,
we cannot talk to each other. And so like, we cannot talk about stuff that we would vote on unless we are being, I believe the law is there has to be minutes taken and it has to be recorded. So
that's something that I brought up when I was running for office was, the county meetings are kind of weird to me because I watch the commissioners get up there and there's no back and forth talking to each other. They all just like vote. you guys got to be able to talk to one another in front of the public to show that you guys actually care about making a change for something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want just me, and I'll tell you, it is in a way, it kind of pisses me off when I see you guys. There's like a vote that comes up on something. You guys know that it's something that is kind of controversial, but y'all don't really talk about it. Y'all just vote.
Yeah.
But the pre-meeting discussion is probably talked about.
It is an interesting thing, and I was talking to someone else, not another commissioner, just for the record, because I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
I was talking to a citizen about it, bouncing ideas off, and there's a lot of good things about a pre-commission meeting because we have the department heads there. It's open to the public.
Yep.
But it's a way that we can go ahead and ask the department heads all the questions we have when they're fresh. They haven't been there all day. First thing in the morning, they're prepared. We can ask all the questions we want. That's a great thing. The flip side to that is when we get to the actual meeting where we're voting, the people that don't pay attention to the pre-commission meeting
think that
they look at it and be like, well, they're not talking about what we have talked about it for a long time.
Yeah.
We just, to conserve your time, the department head's time, the citizens' time over here.
Yeah.
Now the meetings are only like an hour and a half rather than a 3 hour straight long meeting. Yeah. It's just split up in between two is really how it works. If, there's pros and cons to both to kind of weigh, like the city of Panama City, they don't have pre-commission meetings or workshop is the proper term. They don't have workshops, so you see a lot more back and forth in Panama City because that's the first time they're talking about it.
Yeah.
Whereas our first time talking about it is on Fridays, which is open to the public. They can come and listen to it. It's on YouTube if you want to go on the YouTube channel and listen to the whole thing. So it does happen. It's just split between two meetings. One meeting is the discussing, the other meeting is voting.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's something that if citizens don't like that, shoot all of us individually an email. Yeah. Let us know. Let us know, you know, because I was not there when the pre-commission workshop started. So I don't have the full history other than it was like, hey, let's try this out and see if it works. Well, it might not be working. It may be working, but I'm open to feedback from anybody,
I've got a question. I'm going to go back to the ballot thing because I don't think I've asked you this. How did you feel about the half-cent sales tax?
That I'm very on the fence about that one. I literally I can very much, this sounds like a politician answer, but
no,
it truly is one of those things where I fully see the argument on both sides.
Yeah.
There's, just like with the pre-commission meeting stuff, there's pros and cons to both. And so it really comes down to what's important to you, because the half-cent tax goes towards infrastructure and things like that. Well, it's supposed to. The way it's allocated, I believe, don't quote me on this, I'd have to go back and look, but I believe the city of Lynn Haven gets a few $1 million from it. Yeah. And that goes back into our roads and things like that. So because we're able to take the half-cent tax and take money from there to go towards infrastructure, we don't have to take that from our general fund budget, which would come out of your property taxes and impact fees. So that helps in a sense of that. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, you've seen how I voted in meetings. I'm not a fan of taxes. I know that they have to happen, but I like to keep them as low as they possibly can be. So it wasn't technically raising, it was renewing. We already had the tax. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like a raise of taxes. So even then you could argue, well, it's not a raise. It's just renewing what's already there.
Yeah.
And so I see both sides. I legitimately don't judge either side. That's one of those things where I'm like, dude, I get it. Either way. I'm not like hardcore one way or the other.
Yeah, that was just one of the ones I was just kind of like, like you said, I knew that it affected Lynn Haven. Lynn Haven got some money out of it, but I kind of wanted to get your take on it because I kind of changed my stance on it. I'm on the no-go side of it now. And I have my reasons for that. A lot of it has to do with you're talking about allocation of funds. A lot of that money is not itemized. So it's kind of hard to keep track of it. And like I said, I don't know if you saw the video with my little girl, but it was like 6% tax already, half-cent sales tax. And then the argument behind it, and it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. You sound like an uneducated hick when you sit there and you say, well, the tourists pay it too. They pay for it for like 3 months out of the year, 4 months out of the year. We are picking up the brunt of it being a citizen that's here.
Yeah,
that is not an argument.
As far as the half-cent tax, you can make that argument for like maybe Panama City Beach because they have tourists. We don't have tourists in Lynn.
Exactly.
So yeah, I was actually explaining if that's your reasoning. I would have to, I would agree with what you're saying. I would not agree with that argument for the city of Lynn Haven, but I can see other arguments. But yeah, if you're saying it's because of the tourists, it's not. I mean, I pay groceries all the time.
All the time.
But I also use the roads all the time.
Yeah.
So, it really comes down to what is important to you. That's one of the reasons I like having these conversations, though, because when it comes to like the half cents or the amendments, other than, you could argue that number 4 was definitely based on a political like party view.
Yeah.
But most of the time, the amendments don't have a DRLI next to them.
Yeah.
So you can have real discussions about it without people like feeling like they're going against what their party believes. Because it's just human nature, it seems, that you want to side with whatever party you're part of. You kind of just want to back up what they say.
Well, I know. Well, that was kind of like the thing for me. I agreed with the half-cent sales tax for like forever. Like I was like, yeah, dude, yeah, it makes sense. And when I started looking at it, I'm like, wait a second, no, it doesn't. We're already taxed. Our taxes are taxed. You want to throw another half cents on there? Screw you. You're already making more money. You already raised property taxes. Inflation's already a butt. Property values have gone up, which means your taxes went up even more. And then you want to throw another, in my opinion, you raised property taxes, which means you should have gotten away from the half cents. You can't. Our local government is just like our national government. They want to eat, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They don't want to double down on anything. They keep on like, oh, I pushed this much, I'm gonna push more, and they're just gonna keep pushing more and more and more and more and more because taxes go up. Very, very rare that they go down. I don't think we'll see the property tax goes down, and the people that sit up there at the county commission, they think that they're doing a good job.
Just for the record, first time I voted, the Lynn Haven property taxes went down.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Wasn't for the record though. That wasn't just me.
Yeah.
I mean the commission voted on it, but we did have an instance of that happening. I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. Most of the people though that sit at the county, they think that it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. They're living on that whole thing of like, oh well, we went over a decade without raising property taxes, so we're doing good. And like, yeah. We've also had a huge fluctuation of people that have come here and bought homes. You're building homes left and right. And I assume you have an idea of how many of those homes that you're going to fill, that people are going to move to this county. So why are you raising property taxes?
Yeah, I think
there's no economic, like, nobody is doing the math on this stuff. It's like they just...
Yeah, I'm a big numbers guy myself, which is why I like the podcast. I dig into stats, but that's one of my other favorite things to do. And when it comes to the city stuff, is digging into the numbers. Love the numbers, but yeah, back to the property taxes. It's a percentage. Like the city of Lynn Haven right now, I believe, is a 4.05 mil, which means for every $1,000, you pay $4.05. So that's a percentage. So if property value goes up, you already get more money.
Yeah.
If more people come into the city, you already get more money. It's a percentage. That percentages are set up so that they take care of themselves. It's not a set amount of money. It's a percentage to follow the value of something. So therefore, it takes care of itself. You don't need to fluctuate it. It does it already. The only time you should ever raise property taxes is if there's a massive collapse in the economy where the value of homes tank and you were not anticipating it. And so now your budget just like got cut in half.
Yeah.
The odds of that, this happened like one time in our lifetime, 2008. That's it. Other than that, I can't. And even then, I would err on the side of trying not to do that. But that's really, truly the only argument I see. And that happened one time in my lifetime in 2008.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, anything else you want to talk about? Or that's a pretty good discussion. I think we hit on a lot of stuff. I'm just happy having you on.
yeah, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate what this podcast is doing, bringing people from all different walks of life, all different creeds, opinions, and just getting to know the person. Because I do think and I've been guilty of it in the past. But when people, whether that's a business owner or someone that's in politics or whatever, it's very easy to get on the train of putting them in like this bucket of, oh, well, they don't care about us or they don't know anything about us or whatever. And especially in the local 850 area, we're citizens just like you. I mean, we have a lot of the same concerns where we deal with the same thing, some of the same things you do, or we have some of the same interests. We're real people, just like you. Most of us aren't even like, if we're in politics, most of us are not actual, like what you would consider a traditional politician. We're just someone that, hey, I love my city. I have ideas and I think I can help make it better.
Yeah.
You know, I'll say it, man. And I don't know if it's because, at the national level, the president, I don't know what they make now, but the last time I checked, it was like $400,000 a year, or like, the Senate makes enough money to live off of. We don't get paid a lot, man. I think Lynn Haven commissioner is like $14,000 a year.
Yeah, I said that to Vicky when I had her on.
Or maybe it's 15. I don't want to get misquoted, but
I brought up, I don't know if you picked up on that part of the podcast, but I went over to your house one morning and we went running, and I asked you, I was like, dude, why? This is because everything was hitting the fan with the police chief. And I sat there and I was like, why are you doing this? Like, this is ridiculous. This is stupid. And
I just promise it's not for the money.
And you make no money doing it. Like, I was like, this is dumb. Like,
yeah.
Sorry, dude. You know what would happen with my personality if I had to deal with half the people you had to deal with. And you told me, you're like, man, this is my home. Mm-hmm. Like, my kids grow up here. I'm not moving. This is where I grew up. This is where I want my family to grow up. I care about my family and I care about my neighbors. I care about the common man that when I go, it's one of the things, that I've got to say with watching you like go into politics, become a commissioner. It's like, you could be doing way better things, because what you quit, didn't you quit at the college?
I took a giant step back.
Yeah. And you were probably making more money doing that than what you were doing. And it was for people, that's, I've always made the joke about like military. It's like, I was making $60,000 before I went in the military, and I took a cut to go to $25,000 or $24,000 to go wear a plate carrier and carry a gun and potentially go to foreign soil and have to kill for this nation. And people act like whatever about it, but it's like, I didn't do that because I got to do some cool stuff when I was in, but B, I did that because I actually did care. There's people that join the military that literally don't care about serving their country. Mm-hmm. They're just doing it for college or as a way out. And so, no, like I believe that you are one of those people where you actually do give a dang about the city and its residents, and to have to go through that scrutiny and have to hear the peanut gallery sit there and run their mouth about dumb stuff that has nothing to do with anything.
But you said that deal with those people or whatever. But I have the opinion that most people have a good heart.
Yeah.
And a lot. I mean, there are those handful of people that love chaos or whatever. That's just natural. But for the most part, people have good hearts. People are good in nature.
Yeah, but they're not taking the time to think about that about you.
Yeah, but
And I know it's part of the job, but what I'm saying is like, instead of, again, going back into what we're talking about, communication, you would rather go to a meeting and complain about how many phone calls do you get.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, those are the people right there that, like, don't go vote. But
back to voting, though, it's on my mind. The most recent election, Bay County, I think the last time I checked was at like 75% of registered voters voted. During my election, less than 20% did. And of that 20%, only 12% of them were under the age of 40. So we got to find a way to get people that are under the age of 40 involved in local politics, because local politics affects you as much,
way
if not
more. It's more.
It's the law of the land of the city you live in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we vote on something, it goes into effect then.
Yep.
It doesn't have to go through the House and then the Senate and then signed by the president. If we put something on paper, it affects you. It could be positive, it could be negative, and it may be negative and we don't know. Let us know.
Yeah.
I promise you, we're up there to make, well, at least I don't want to speak for everybody, but most people have good hearts, and we're up there because we want to make the city better for you, and we only know what we know.
Yeah.
So reach out to me.
Yeah.
I want to know, and I can't promise that I can make everything happen. I'm only one vote out of 5, but I can talk to people. I can talk to the commissioners. I can bring it up under the Sunshine Law, of course, and I can make suggestions for policy. And sometimes, there's certain issues that I've pushed for and I can't get, so it happens sometimes, but I only know what I know.
Cool, man. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.